Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what I like to call the Tough Love Manifesto. We're going to take a hard, completely unfiltered look at a collection of modern Stoic principles. Think of this as a wake-up call about personal accountability, mental toughness, and navigating the actual social realities of the world we live in today. If you've ever felt stuck, frustrated with your progress, or just totally drained by the people around you, the principles we're about to explore might be exactly what you need to hear right now. So get comfortable, focus in, and let's get started. Just let that sink in for a second. No one is coming to save you. Literally, no one. The sooner you internalize this single sentence, the faster your entire life transforms. The responsibility for your life is entirely yours. We so often fall into this trap of waiting, right? Waiting for a rescue, waiting for the perfect opportunity, or waiting for some magical surge of constant motivation. But strong people, they learn to act without a safety net. They execute even when they lack support.
All right, Chapter 1, The Responsibility is All Yours. Let's talk about radical accountability. So, shifting out of that victim mindset, it requires understanding that you are the sole architect of your circumstances. You obviously can't control everything that happens to you, but you completely control how you respond. When we really look at intention versus result, the harsh truth is that the world simply does not reward your intentions. It doesn't reward effort without execution. It rewards results. You might have the absolute best intentions in the world, but effort without execution doesn't change a single thing. Reality responds to what you actually deliver, not to how much you say you tried. And hey, speaking of what you say, let's look at the trap of words. You know those people who constantly talk about themselves or loudly announce how strong they are? Yeah, they are almost always trying to compensate for an internal lack. Truly strong people just don't need to announce their strength all the time. Their behavior speaks for them. Furthermore, when the words of others do actually hurt you deeply, it's rarely about them. It's because their words found an insecurity that was already living inside you. It just reveals something internally unresolved that you need to work on.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, Behaviors, Words, and Boundaries. Let's look into the social mirror.
How you manage your boundaries, how you interpret other people's behaviors, and how you protect your own energy, these are absolutely fundamental to maintaining your mental toughness. Now, I want you to ask yourself a seriously tough question. Do you teach people how to treat you? Well, psychological reality check, yes, you do, every single day. Everything that you tolerate in silence eventually becomes the standard for how others treat you. If you don't enforce your own boundaries, nobody else is going to do it for you. Now, what's really fascinating here is how we often misinterpret social behavior. What people claim is just an innocent joke is frequently just disguised disrespect. It's a subtle way to test your limits. And those people who constantly feed your ego, they rarely contribute to your real growth. The ones who truly respect you are the ones who will correct you when you're wrong, even when it's super uncomfortable. Which brings us to approval versus respect. Look, the need to please everyone, that desperate chase for approval, it just weakens your true identity. When you try to be accepted by everyone, you slowly start to abandon who you really are. True respect, on the other hand, is born from establishing strict boundaries, not from universal approval.
And here is a fundamental rule you need to memorize. No is a complete sentence, full stop. You do not need to excessively justify your limits, your time, or your choices to anyone. When you say no and just stop talking, you project immense confidence and self-respect. Stop over-explaining your boundaries to people who actively want to cross them.
Okay, let's lock in some hard truths about relationships. First off, not every environment is safe for your pain or your plans. Vulnerability is a massive buzzword right now, but exposing it to the wrong people, you're literally just handing them ammunition. Second, advice without practical experience is incredibly dangerous. Protect your mind from baseless opinions. And finally, you cannot save or change someone who doesn't desire transformation. Sometimes you just have to accept that certain people only belong to one specific phase of your life, and honestly, that's okay.
This leads us to a highly misunderstood concept, forgiveness. The wrong people often bring us our most important lessons. But remember this, forgiving them is about finding your own internal peace. It absolutely does not mean you allow them access to your life again. Forgiveness is internal. Trust is earned. You can completely forgive someone while keeping the door firmly shut.
All right, Chapter 3, The Illusion of Motivation. Let's break down the mechanics of long-term growth.
Knowing your boundaries is fantastic, but executing your goals requires a totally different toolkit. We are biologically wired to seek comfort, but comfort is actually far more dangerous than difficulty.
Comfort is the exact place where people weaken and lose their edge, their intensity. Difficulty, on the other hand, that's the forge. That is exactly where resistance and resilience are actively built.
So how do we actually push through that difficulty? It all boils down to motivation versus discipline. Motivation is just a feeling, and like all feelings, it's pretty fleeting. It's going to abandon you on a cold morning or after a super long day at work. Discipline is what sustains real results. In the long run, consistent obsession and discipline will always beat raw talent that relies only on inspiration.
The grind itself requires a holistic approach. Your physical body directly influences your mind. If you neglect your body, you are actively weakening your energy, your focus, and your emotional resistance. During the grind, you'll also quickly learn that true loyalty from others only shows up in hard times. And when things get tough, beware of distractions. Endless scrolling or binge watching aren't just harmless little habits, they're often attempts to escape an empty reality. The emptier the real life, the stronger the need for escapism.
Chapter 4. The Power of the Silent Process. This is all about the silent transformation. When you actually commit to radical accountability and discipline, you enter a phase of life that requires immense patience. Because real, substantial growth almost always happens completely in the dark. Every transformation follows 3 distinct stages. First up is loss. You simply cannot build a new life while keeping the exact same old habits and environments. You have to let them go. Stage 2 is the silent growth process. This is the lonely, unglamorous work when nobody is clapping for you. Only after surviving stages 1 and 2 do you finally reach stage 3, the visible, external results that everyone else suddenly applauds. During that silent process, yeah, you're going to feel isolated. But there is a massive distinction between loneliness and abandonment. Not all loneliness is abandonment. Sometimes distancing yourself from the crowd is an absolute necessity for clarity, alignment, and growth. You aren't being left behind. You are intentionally stepping away to focus.
So the crucial point is captured beautifully right here. Pain explains scars. It doesn't determine destiny. What happened to you in the past absolutely does not define who you will be in the future. Hard times don't just hurt, they fortify you. The pressure you endure today is exactly what builds the resistance you're going to need tomorrow.
As we wrap things up, keep these final truths in your back pocket. First, stop comparing your messy behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reels. Comparison absolutely destroys your focus. Second, getting slightly lost or taking a detour doesn't mean definitive failure. It's literally just part of the process. And most importantly, remember that no matter how difficult your current phase is, some of the absolute best moments of your life haven't even happened yet. Which leaves us with this. Reality responds to what you become. Your internal changes are what will eventually alter your external results. It is not about wishing for a better reality. It's about becoming the exact type of person who commands one. So, as you walk away from this explainer today, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Knowing that the world only rewards results, what are you going to choose to become starting right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you on the next one.